Well, the persecution has really ramped up in Nigeria, but it's been going on for some time now. And joining me right now is the African liaison for CSI International, Hassan John, to talk more about it. Hassan, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's just talk. I've seen some really crazy headlines in the past few days. Over the years, CBN, we've been reporting on this, and obviously you've been working there on the ground and trying to help people in need there for some time. This has been going on in Nigeria, but now we've seen at Catholic schools, hundreds of kids being abducted, and then we're now starting to see reports of what's been going on while they've had them in captive, some released, some not. So what is going on here? And it is a Catholic school. Number one, tell me about what's going on there. And number two, do you believe these are targeted at Christians, these attacks?
Yes, indeed. So let me just step back and put it into a little context, just to say that when it comes to what we call the persecution now and the genocidal attacks against Christian communities, the persecution against Christians they go on two levels here in Nigeria. So the first level is the subtle persecution that we've lived with so many years. In other words, if you live as a Christian in northern Nigeria, you know that you are denied certain privileges within the government. You know that, for instance, my name is Hassan, not because it's an Arabic name, but not because I was born Muslim. It's just because when I was born, we were born twins. So my parents felt, well, it was the norm then to just have an Arabic or Islamic sounding name because it gives you a better opportunity. So what I'm saying invariably is that we've lived with all this. We've learned how to adjust. We've learned how to cope with the different levels of harassments by the Muslim community in northern Nigeria. But then came the violence, and this violence began, intermittently. Yes, it is the beheading of a Christian on the allegation of blasphemy in Kano, or it is another allegation of desecrating the Quran in Zaria. I mean, it could be anything. From time to time, Christians get killed. But again, we just left that the government should be able to handle this. It is supposed to provide the safety for everybody because we are supposedly running a secular nation. However, that hasn't happened. But then came the intense violence I would argue, from 1999 to 2000, when Sharia was introduced in most northern states. And then the violence erupted in the streets of Kaduna, particularly, where arguably between 2000 and 3000 were killed, Christians, but depending on which data you're looking at. But then, of course, Boko Haram also came into the scene by 2009 and then 2010, effectively with series of bombings, declarations, posting of their things online. They actually copied the ISIL style of trying to propagate the fear and post everything online. And that went on again and again. Now, the thing is, with all the intensity of the killings, again, Christians particularly have hoped that the government that had the capacity and the capability to stop the killings and engage all these terrorist groups at that time should have been able to do that effectively. But for so many reasons now, I won't take too much time to go either through the corruption or the mishandling or the complicity, or even military officers now being named as either selling arms or selling weapons. I know a lot of mess just went on there. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is, in all this, suddenly, when the killings became very prominent, then the government came in with a politically correct narrative. And the politically correct narrative is, oh, this is just a clash between herders and farmers. Oh, it has nothing to do with religion. It is the Fulanis who are grazing cows, and they happen to have been passing in the farms of Christians. And so the Christians happen also to be, they were just in the receiving end. And we kept saying and again that no, what's been going on is a strategic, systematic attacks and destruction and wiping out of people by armed groups. And these armed groups, we know them. We've pointed them out again and again, to the security authorities. They are well equipped, they are well funded, and they are well organized. And when I say well organized, I mean, take for instance Dogon Hawa. in 2010, when three villages that are in a radius of about 4 kilometers, 500 people killed in 3 hours. And this all seem to have dissolved into the night and nothing happened till today. Not a person, this is just an example, but there have been dozens of more of these attacks. So when Christians begin to shout that it is genocidal or this is genocide against Christians, the government now says, what they do deliberately now is they twist the timeline and they give the world the impression that, oh, these are just attacks that started maybe a year ago or maybe this year. And so Christians are crying over nothing. But what we are saying is it's a systematic attack and wiping out of communities in the last 15 years. And as I speak to you, more than 300 villages have been sacked. Thousands of churches have been destroyed. And as we speak, there are, I think, arguably between 3 to 5 million Christians that have been displaced from their villages, and they've not been there in the last 7 years. So this is just to give an overview of the challenges that Christians have faced until Donald Trump made the pronouncement and asked that the country be designated as a country of particular concern. But by the way, let me also quickly mention that the US is not the first to have called the genocide. When the British Parliamentary Group on Religious Freedom, they call it the APPG report, was released in January 2020, it was supposed to have raised the red flag. But the Nigerian government, just like they are doing now, very predictably, they quickly mobilized, all sorts of people to try to change the narrative. They've had meetings with government officials to try to belittle the whole thing and still insist that these are killings caused by climate change, while people are fighting for economic resources rather than the killing of and wiping of a particular group of people because of their religion and their ethnicity. So when that report came out in 2020, perhaps if something had been done, many more lives would have been saved. But the report was dismissed. They just still attributed it to climate change because, in my opinion, when it comes to radical Islam or anything to do with Islam against Christianity, there is this I would say cold feet in wanting to talk about it, because suddenly the Islamic world comes after you with being Islamophobic, trying to make Islam look bad, trying to raise hatred against Islam. And what we're saying, we've consistently said no. What Christians in central Nigeria have been saying, and they've been saying it for more than 10 years now, is they are being systematically attacked and destroyed by a group of well-equipped and trained militia with the complicity of the Nigerian government. Because the Nigerian government cannot claim they don't know. Actually, they've set up task forces, a military and army that have even engaged with some of these terrorist groups. And the Nigerian army lost a lot of soldiers trying to fight these terrorists. So we're not talking about mere Fulani herders, or we're not talking about just Muslims attacking Christians. No, we're saying that these are people that have killed dozens of soldiers. They've attacked the Federal Capital Territory many times. And so when people that do not understand clearly the details and the intricacies of the things going on, they simply just dismiss it. But what we keep saying is, can they pay a little more attention to what's happening? So again, this is just what's on the ground.
What do you think, Hassan, is, and you kind of touched on some of them there, the frustrations, because I've seen that in the media too, like that over here, we get it filtered down and then people say, oh, well, there's just all kinds of violence going on everywhere and it's not necessarily targeted at a group. What do you think the media around the world sort of misses the mark on the most when it comes to the subject of this persecution going on there in Nigeria?
Yeah, unfortunately, the media these days just wants quick answers, quick resolutions, or quick analysis of a situation, because we're in a fast-moving media where people just want to get this thing done, say it, and then move on to something. And unfortunately also, I've seen, especially when it comes to the issue of Christian persecution in Nigeria, the so-called analysts that are called to discuss about it on the media also just cherry-pick events and instances and things, and then they draw a general conclusion over these matters. For instance, central Nigeria has a completely different challenge from northwest Nigeria, where you have bandits that are attacking and destroying Muslim communities. And the problem in central Nigeria that is ideologically driven by radical Islamists is not the same drive that is causing the killings in northwest Nigeria. And of course, it's not the same that Boko Haram, of course, had already made its declaration and it's already online that they are out to attack and destroy and kill Christians, kill anything that is democratic because it's anti-Sharia, and of course will not allow Western education because they say Western education, creates all problems for Islam. In other words, it is immoral when it comes to Islam. They don't go together. So Boko Haram is very clear. But what the Nigerian government refuses to point out, and they denied for many years, is the link between Boko Haram and the Fulani Islamists that took on the Boko Haram call to attack Christians in central Nigeria and expanded it. But also the funding that is coming, now we know that funding has been coming from, from politicians in Nigeria that have funded the killings for one reason or the other. And of course, politicians that have been complicit, either in looking the other way or financing or sponsoring these attacks in certain communities. But the media, of course, the Western media, they will say, oh, it's too complicated. It's not just one. It's not just one issue that is causing the mayhem in central Nigeria. And of course, they will always throw the climate change and fight for economic resources. And they will say, oh, Muslims and Christians are also killed. So how can you say that only Christians are killed when Muslims are also killed? And of course, I've had this narrative that, oh, when a bullet is fired, it doesn't discriminate between Christians and Muslims. But I said, yeah, but what we are saying here is pay attention to the details. And the details, let the facts speak for themselves, because the Christians in central Nigeria have simply just put their facts on the table. Now, for those that choose to give it their own interpretation based on whatever reasons they are given those kind of interpretations is a different thing entirely. But the point is that when they say it's complicated, it just simply means that they just don't want to get involved. And when it has to do anything with Islam, they also do not want to get involved. So it's better to just belittle the entire thing and then make it look like, oh, well. But of course, to be fair, the media will tell you that it's too dangerous to go into those places to even bring reports. And which makes our point. It is dangerous because people are being killed almost every day.
And why do you think, Hassan, it took, number one, the previous administration in the United States, they didn't do it, not designating Nigeria a country of particular concern? And what does that do now that President Trump has done that? What kind of impact does that have? And what was the first part of that? What was the frustration level of it beforehand not being labeled that?
Yes, I think when President Trump came in his first tenure, that he actually designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, it was very helpful because at that time, at least some attention was being brought to the problem. And the Nigerian government was supposed to sit up and take, its responsibility seriously. But of course, soon after that, the Biden administration came in and removed that designation. But what that simply did was it now made those that are sponsoring and are complicit in the killings just simply relax and they dismiss the entire thing. Actually, it was a proof to the entire world that we were wrong and that what they were doing was okay and it was justifiable, and the kind of action they were taking not to stop the killing was okay and it was acceptable. Unfortunately, thousands have been killed till now. But we will say, as Christians in central Nigeria, we'll say, thank goodness that this is an answered prayer, because for these decades, we have prayed, we have cried, we have fasted. There's hardly anything we didn't do, asking God to intervene. And if this is the intervention, then we're very happy about it, because in the last few weeks that Donald Trump made that pronouncement alone, the entire political system in Nigeria went into the panic mode. The military establishments suddenly now have found a feet and they found a voice. And they are now moving up and down, trying to, if nothing else, at least trying to prove to Trump that they are doing something about it. Excuse me. Nothing much, but at least they need to show. Of course, they've sent a delegation quickly to the US. Of course, there's a a delegation currently now in Nigeria have a meeting with people. As much as they are pushing back that it is not genocidal or it's not genocide, but at least they are trying to do some image laundering. And if nothing else, the Nigerian army, presumably in the last couple of days, had gone on the offensive in some of those bandits, in quotes, that have been attacking and decimating communities. But at least there's some action going on. And for
Yeah.
Christians here, it is, I mean, it's massive. It's a big answered prayer. What we pray and hope is that it will not just be this one off, and then we go back into what we've experienced and the killings continue, that the Nigerian government will be held accountable.
Hassan, tell me about, CSI is known for helping, like, boots on the ground, doing what they can to support, pastors and church leaders in places like Nigeria. Tell me about what types of things are needed most in Nigeria for the Christians there that are experiencing this type of persecution and that you're talking about, the lack of protections and everything else. What are the types of things they need that people can be praying for? And, what is a pastor or a Christian kind of going through on like a day-to-day basis if they haven't been attacked yet? What's that like?
Yes, indeed. Well, let me say, having said all that I've said now, honestly, CSI's presence and a few other, Christian charities that have been in central Nigeria have been the only answered prayers that have met with victims, have, prayed with victims and have brought any assistance at all. Because the Nigerian government itself had ignored the central region of Nigeria and bringing any assistance. And like I mentioned, there are people that have been displaced from their communities for more than 7 to 10 years. And they've just been living in what you may call camps, but there are no designated camps, just either abandoned buildings, classrooms, or they're just absorbed by neighbors. So it's been very stressful and very traumatic. So CSI has been providing immediate relief, food relief assistance to people, because what the Fulani would do, which is the irony about saying they're fighting for grazing land, what they do is they destroy the farmland with machetes. They go and cut down the corn, cut down the maize, or just burn whatever is in the farms, not even feeding it to their cattle, just massive mayhem and destruction. But then CSI will have to come in with emergency food supply, with assistance for medical, because so many of them have life-changing injuries, amputations, machete cuts, bullet wounds. But that assistance to health had been very, very, it's been very critical. It's been life-saving. And orphans that have been offered scholarship in schools, because if the idea is to destroy the people, you also want to destroy their education and destroy their lifestyle. But so CSI is taking all these levels and doing whatever it can. Like I said, with some other charities that have, committed so much in doing that. And like you said, for the pastors working in places like that, I would say, also speaking for myself as a pastor, if you are a pastor, working in a church in central Nigeria, you simply know that you have signed your death certificate, because that's the truth of the matter. Pastors have been targeted for kidnapping and for killings. I have had a bunch on my head, I would say, since 2014 or thereabout.
On yours?
Sure. Boko Haram.
Wow. You still go back?
I still do. The thing is, me and many other pastors, we've made up our minds that we will not be intimidated by the fear. We'll rely and leave our faith our lives in the hands of the Lord, and just let him see us through. And indeed, the Lord has seen us through. I just came back from Nigeria about a month ago, and I'm planning another trip very soon. I'm going into these villages because it is the commitment, to sit with these victims, to hold their hands, to pray with them. A lot of them have lost everything. So they just want somebody to tell them that it is well. The Lord is with you. And they see people coming, especially, with the charities like CSI, that would come and say, we bring this on behalf of supporters and contributors that have committed to send this bag of rice or this bag of corn on. And for the people, the incredible thing is, it is not the bag of rice that they get. Is that food, one, shows the love that other Christians all over the world have put into that little item, which is a symbol of that love. It's also a symbol of that prayer of standing with those people. But also importantly, that I have seen in so many refugee camps, it restores the dignity of the women, because I have seen some women that have to go out on the streets, in the communities, to prostitute
Mm.
as prostitutes, to even sleep with the soldiers that have been sent to guard them, just so that they can get a cup of rice to feed their kids. They've been in those camps
Jeez.
for so many years. They've lost their husbands. What else can they do? So that kind of support from CSI consistently has brought hope, it's just letting them know that the Lord is with them and that other Christians all over the world are with them. And particularly from the US, let me say, because the relationship between the US, the Christians from the US and in central Nigeria. So I come from Jos, and I do not have time to give you my history, but I went to a Baptist school that was established and set up by the Baptist Mission in the US. And I came from a very poor background. And because of that, I went to school with literal paying almost nothing. And without that, as a Christian in that part of the world, I would have had no education at all. But people contributed to make me what I am today. And so it's what is still going on, even with those supporting. Yes, it may sound, from time to time, we raise prayers and people pray and they never get a feedback to whether or not God has answered those prayers. And if anyone is following us today, I just want to assure them that the Lord is answering those prayers every day, every minute. We see it in everything that's happening.
Wow, that's amazing stuff, Hassan. And we could talk for hours on this. I definitely want to have you back again to get more context. And maybe when you come back, or maybe when you're even in Nigeria, we can talk to you next time from there. But I would love to hear more on this. But I appreciate what you explained today. It's super helpful. And I know that all the Christians watching will want to help and assist, and you can do that through CSI, and definitely praying. That is something huge. Of course, as Christians, we know that we can all do right there from wherever we are in our part of the world. So appreciate you bringing all that information here today, Hassan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure, and thank you for all you're doing. It's a blessing to us as well.